Hey there, everybody. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I hope you're doing well today. Your week is off to a good start. All right, I've been super excited about this episode for a couple of weeks now because I'm doing some FAQs, anxiety FAQs. And I was going to call this anxiety CCPs for commonly coached problems, but I didn't think anybody would know what that meant except for me. So I went with FAQs. But the point of this episode and the questions that I'm answering this week in the Transforming Anxiety podcast is these are some of the most common problems that clients show up to coaching with. These are the first things they're asking me. This is what they're asking me when we're on a consult call. This is what we're going over in our very first few sessions. So I thought I would share some of those questions and then some of those answers, how I coach people through those, right? How we talk about it, how we go through it. So that's this week. Now, I also want to tell you, I'm going to do FAQ episodes from time to time. This won't be the only one. So if you have questions that you would love to see me answer on a podcast and a Facebook Live, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. You can send me a message via my website. I am not hard to find online. Search for Kelly Hanlon McCormick, and whatever kind of virtual carrier pigeon you would like to send me. Hey, there's my niece, Caitlin. Hi, Kylie. Hi, Caitlin. Whatever kind of virtual carrier pigeon you want to send me, send over your questions. I would love to answer your questions. So I pulled a couple questions from ongoing clients, and these were questions that I have talked about in sessions this week with people. So I thought that I would start there. And the first one, the most common one probably across the board is, and like I said, I called these FAQs, but they're really commonly coached problems. They're not really phrased as questions. The first one I get is, I don't want to feel anxious anymore, right? People, they seek me out. They're looking for coaching. They're looking to overcome this emotion. And what they're really wanting, they think, is to just get rid of anxiety altogether. That's their problem. If they can get rid of their problem, they will feel so much better. Their life will be so much better. And I understand wanting this. I understand that our minds go there and they say, if I just weren't so anxious, if I just didn't feel this kind of stress, I would be more productive. I'd be a better parent. I'd be a better friend. I'd be a better partner. I'd get more done at work. I would just be a better person, a happier person. I'd live an easier life. I totally understand the urge, the temptation to ask that question. How do I get rid of anxiety? Help me get rid of anxiety. And what I lovingly tell all of my clients is, I remind them, anxiety is an emotion, right? Anxiety is the emotional component of the physical stress response. And when I say physical, I mean it's a stress response that our brain puts our bodies through when we are under a real or perceived threat. Anxiety is the emotional component of the stress response. We are not getting rid of anxiety. We're not getting rid of any emotion. We're not getting rid of anger. We're not getting rid of excitement. We're not getting rid of frustration. We're not getting rid of joy. We don't want to get rid of these emotions if we really, really think about it. There are times to feel happy. There are times to feel sad. There's times to be angry. All of them are necessary, right? As a human being, alive and well on the planet, we are subject to and open to, that's the key, if we can be open to, the whole range of human emotions. Anxiety is one of them. We're not getting rid of anxiety. Our work is in transforming your experience of anxiety. So when I have clients coming to me and they want to get rid of anxiety, what I'm hearing them say is that they're thinking anxiety is a problem, right? This is the problem they have and they want to solve their problem. And what I teach them, what I show them, is that anxiety is not a problem. Thinking anxiety is a problem is a problem. Does that make sense? So let's think about a totally different sensation that we have in our bodies. If you were, right, our bodies get hot, our bodies get cold. right? That's a physical sensation. It's different than an emotion, but I want to just show you, like, all of this has to do with being a human being. All of this has to do with being alive and well on the planet. If you had the story that being hot was a problem, then every time your body felt hot, you'd have a problem. Every time, right? And I would coach that person the same way and say, being hot isn't a problem, right? You know how to take care of yourself when you're hot. You know how to take care of yourself when you're hungry. You know how to take care of yourself when you're tired or when you're cold or when you're thirsty. You know how to take care of all of these things. Thinking that being hot is a problem, right? Being hot is not a problem. The same is true with our emotions. Just like physical sensations, we are going to have emotional vibrations move through our body. Thinking those emotional vibrations are a problem is a problem. The emotional vibrations in and of themselves are never a problem. Okay? So obviously we go much more into this. Obviously there's more to this. I use the model. Remember, our thoughts create our feelings. And when we're really looking at, I've got this problem, I want to fix this problem, and I say, okay, how are you feeling about this, right? We kind of backtrack and find, like, all of those feelings are coming from stories you're telling yourself, belief systems that you have, all of them. So thinking that anxiety is a problem, which is the problem, that's a problem we can fix because we get to change how we think. We get to change how we think about our emotions. We get to change how we think about experiences. We get to change how we think about other people. We get to choose what we're thinking. So if you're thinking that anxiety is a problem, I want to show you that by changing that thought, by changing that story, you're going to alleviate so much anxiety right then and there, because you won't have the idea that anxiety is a problem. Anxiety will be able to show up, and you'll be able to look at anxiety as an emotion, which is a signal, right? What is anxiety here to tell me? Why is anxiety showing up? What am I not paying attention to in my mind that's creating this anxiety that I need to address, that I need to check in with, right? All right, so that is one of the first things that I hear from people, is that I don't want to feel anxious anymore. Fix it. Help me get rid of anxiety. Now, another one is I can't handle it. This is a good one. I can't handle it. I just can't handle any more anxiety. I can't handle any more stress, right? And I always ask people, I'm like, so are you handling it right now? And they say, yeah, right? When I really push them on this point, if we are on the phone talking about stress and anxiety, that person is handling stress and anxiety because they're there with me on the phone talking about it. So anytime, well, let's chat about it in a second. If somebody comes to me and they say, I can't handle it, and I remind them, but you are handling it because here we are talking about it. Everything is fine. You're safe. You may be uncomfortable. You may feel the emotion of stress. You may feel the emotion of anxiety. You may even have the physical sensations of the stress response moving through your body. It may be uncomfortable, but here we are. You're handling it, right? So then I always ask them, is it that you're not handling it, or is it that you can't handle it, or is it that you can't handle it the way you want to handle it? And usually at that point, people are like, oh, yeah, that seems a little bit more right. I am handling it. And then they can say, like, I'm handling it wildly. I'm handling it like a hot mess, right? It's so messy how I'm handling it. Great, that's fine. That's fine. Give yourself credit for handling it. Now let's go to work and figure out how you want to handle it and give you some tools to get you there, right? How do we handle things the way that we want to handle them? This is one of those things that we can't just like, oh, I wish I handled this better, and then it's going to magically happen. We don't accidentally start handling things the way that we want to be handling them. We have to work at this. We have to practice this. It's always helpful to have some tools and some processes and some techniques that you can rely on to get you from where you are, which is handling it, but to handling it the way that you want to handle it. those tools and techniques and processes are always helpful. That's coaching. That is what I do, is give people a whole bunch of tools and techniques and processes so that when anxiety shows up, when stress shows up, when worry shows up, or overwhelm, they know how to handle it. They've got techniques. They know how to practice. They know how to feel their feelings. They know where the feelings came from in the first place, from their thinking, right? They're all kinds of. But what you're telling me is I can't handle it, meaning maybe I'm not handling it the way that I want to be handling it. Let's give you a way to handle it the way you want to handle it. Let's give you a way to handle it so that it doesn't feel awful. Let's give you a way to handle it so that anxiety and stress actually move through your body and they don't get stuck there because you're so busy reacting to them or trying to resist them. Right? Let's arm you with some really useful, practical tools to handle things the way that you want to be handling them. This shifts everything on its head. All of a sudden, you get to be proactive in your life. You get to think, okay, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to get through this? How am I going to get through this stressful meeting or this long flight or this hard conversation with my partner? How am I going to handle this? You get to be proactive about it instead of reacting and saying like, oh, well, I'll just kind of figure it out on the fly, and then dealing with the consequences and all of the fallout from that later, right? There's a total difference between being proactive about your life, being proactive about how you're managing your mind, being proactive about how you're fueling your actions and who you're being in life. That's totally different than having to react to the fallout from whatever that looked like when you just reacted on the fly, spontaneously, right? We're so proactive about so many things in life. We prepare ourselves, we plan, we schedule, we get organized. Organizing our minds, being proactive about how we're going to think, how we want to feel, the actions that we want to take. This is like the most important kind of proactivity, is that a word, that we could take in our lives. This is the most important kind of focus we could take on being proactive. Right? Does that kind of make sense? So those are just a couple of the FAQs that I talk about in the podcast this week. Like I said, I want to hear what your questions are. If there's specific things that you're struggling with, specific questions that you have about anxiety or about stress or about worry or about overwhelm, or how any of this fits into your life, meaning how it's affecting relationships, how it's affecting your job, how it's affecting parenting or your finances or your health. What kind of toll does this take on how and what you're eating? If you're moving your body every day, right? If you're able to meditate, those sorts of things. There's all sorts of ways that we kind of see stress and anxiety manifest as issues. And when we're being proactive and when we're caretaking and managing our minds, managing how we're thinking so that we're managing how we're feeling, so that we're managing how we're acting, who we're being in the world, beautiful, wonderful things can happen. It's almost like there's nothing you can't achieve. So I won't make this too long, but I want to remind you, if you want to catch, this is episode 20 of the Transforming Anxiety podcast. So these FAQ episodes I'm not doing worksheets for. I'm just kind of giving you my answers and some coaching for FAQs that I hear commonly, coached problems that I hear from my clients in my practice. I will be back next week. We're going to talk about comfort zones and how that pertains to anxiety in particular. Many people say that they hate feeling anxious, and yet we get really comfortable being anxious. So we're going to talk about comfort zones next week. There'll be another new freebie for you next week. And then there's going to be some really fun stuff coming this summer. So if you haven't already, come over to the website, kellyhanlonmccormick.com/podcast. And you can find all of the podcast episodes. You can grab all of the downloadable freebies that have gone along with all of them so far. You can also sign up for my email list where I will be sharing upcoming fun stuff. Like this weekend, if you are in the Kansas City area, or if you'd like to be in the Kansas City area, I am giving a live workshop at the Heartland Yoga Festival, which is happening in Lee Summit, Missouri, suburb of Kansas City, out at Unity Village. It's going to be amazing. This is the second annual festival that this team has put on, and last year was phenomenal. There's some great yoga. There's some awesome vendors. It's just going to be a fun time. So we're kicking things off Friday night with my friend Melissa Saubers in her Sands Bar KC. There's going to be live music and a whole bunch of non-alcoholic fun drinks. So we're going to start Friday night. And then Saturday we have there's like an opening with a big yoga class that I believe Ruth Ann Zentner from Zen Zone Yoga is going to be teaching. And then my live workshop is at 10:30 a.m. this Saturday morning. So you can buy tickets for the whole festival. You can buy tickets just to come to my workshop. So I would love to have some friendly faces there. There'll be friendly faces. I'd love to have familiar faces. How about that? So if you're interested in that, that's this Saturday, June 22nd. But I also wanted to let you know I've got a free webinar that's coming up, and I will let you know all about that on the podcast and here on Facebook. And if you're on my email list, you'll be the first to know. So a free webinar that's coming up all about true freedom, how we create freedom in our lives, freedom from anxiety, freedom from any emotion, how we really get proactive about how we're thinking and feeling and acting. So that's going to be awesome. That'll be coming up here soon. I don't have specific dates yet. And later this summer, I'm going to have some really fun guests come on the podcast. One is my yoga teacher. We're going to be talking about all things yoga and anxiety and stress and how that has impacted both of us. We're going to be talking about tea with one of my very favorite tea gurus, and she's got some fun stuff going on in the tea world. We're going to talk about essential oils and how essential oils help with our emotions and our immune system and everything else in between. So we've got some really, really fun stuff coming up. So like I said, go to kellyhanlonmccormick.com/podcast where you can find all of the podcast episodes and all of the downloads. And I will be back next week when we talk about comfort zones and what this has to do with stress and anxiety. So have an awesome week. I will see you same time, same place next week. Until then, take care, guys. Bye for now.